Her twin's perfect life was a gilded cage, forcing Jina to play a part she never wanted. Han-seo, the arrogant heir at the center of it all, was everything she hated, a cold businessman with no heart. But when a secret art studio revealed the man behind the mask, everything changed. Now, a story born from a lie unravels into a love so real, it proves that even in a world of deception, truth and justice always find their way. It was a cold, hard fact, as undeniable and biting as a cold winter morning. Jina hated Minji. And it wasn't the petty sibling rivalry kind of hate. It was a deep-seated, simmering resentment born from years of comparison and condescension. Minji was a living, breathing fairy tale, perfectly poised, impeccably dressed, and seemingly gliding through life on a cloud of privilege. She was a celebrity in their social circles, not just for her own charm, but for her relationship with Han-seo, the heir to a powerful chaebol family. Their relationship was the stuff of glossy magazine covers, a perfect union of wealth, beauty, and status. Jina's world was a stark, muted contrast. She was an artist. Her life was a canvas splattered with paint, a studio filled with the scent of turpentine and quiet solitude. She was an introvert, finding comfort not in glittering galas but in the quiet companionship of her own thoughts. Her heart belonged to Junho, a kind but struggling musician. Their love was simple, real, and messy, a reflection of Jina's own life. It was a love that didn't make headlines, a love that was just for them. Minji, with her endless veiled criticisms and passive-aggressive remarks, always made sure Jina felt the chasm between their lives. The way she'd casually mention the size of Han-seo's family estate or the price of her new designer bag always felt like a jab at Jina's modest, artistic existence. It was a constant reminder that Jina was, in Minji's eyes, a lesser version of herself. The tension between the twins reached its breaking point on a rainy Tuesday. Minji, her face pale and her hands trembling, came to Jina with a preposterous request. She wanted Jina to switch places with her for a week. The reason? Minji's parents had found a suitable marriage partner for her, a total stranger from a powerful family, and she couldn't escape the arrangement without causing a scandal. Her only way out was to convince her parents that she and Han-seo were madly in love and ready for a serious commitment. Jina's first reaction was pure, unfiltered fury, the audacity. To ask her to lie, to pretend, to step into a life she despised, all to serve Minji's selfish ends. But Minji, seeing the fire in her sister's eyes, played her final card. She offered Jina a hefty sum of money, enough to rent a proper studio space for an entire year, enough to finally give her art the attention it deserved. It was a desperate, calculated move, and Jina, seeing her dreams within reach, was swayed. The deal was struck. Jina would become Minji for 1 week. She would live her life, attend her social events, and, most nauseatingly, pretend to be deeply in love with Han-seo. On the first day of her new life, Jina met Han-seo at a charity gala. The feeling of dislike was instantaneous and mutual. He was a perfect caricature of everything she hated, arrogant, demanding, and with eyes that seemed to look right through her, not at her. He didn't see Minji. He saw an accessory, a role to be played. He was a stark, unpleasant contrast to her gentle, soft-spoken Junho. While Junho's hands were rough from playing the guitar, Han-seo's were manicured and pristine. While Junho would listen to her talk about her art for hours, Han-seo cut her off mid-sentence, correcting her posture and whispering curt instructions about who to greet and what to say. His words, delivered with a cold precision, were like tiny daggers. He criticized her for a lack of social graces and unprofessional behavior, his voice a low, condescending hum. Jina felt a wave of cold fury. She hated him for his cruelty, for his arrogance, for the way he made her feel small and insignificant. This wasn't just a dislike. It was a palpable, simmering animosity.
It was the initial burst of hatred, a powerful and suffocating emotion that set the stage for everything that was to come. As she stood beside him, trapped in a life that wasn't hers, she couldn't help but wonder, how could her sister, her own twin, be in a relationship with such a vile, heartless man? The answer, she would soon discover, was more complicated than she could ever have imagined.
The facade was a suffocating suit of armor. Jina, the quiet artist, was trapped inside the polished, socialite shell of her twin sister, Minji. Every day was a performance. She struggled with the intricate social calendar, a whirlwind of charity luncheons and networking dinners that felt completely foreign to her. High society etiquette was a language she couldn't speak, filled with subtle cues and unspoken rules that Minji had mastered. But the most difficult part of the performance wasn't the endless small talk or the delicate dance of social politics. It was Han-seo. Jina braced herself for his sharp criticisms, his cold dismissiveness, the disdain she had come to expect. But a strange shift began to occur. His initial contempt started to waver, softening at the edges. He would catch her off guard, not with a biting remark, but with a lingering glance. He'd watch her, a silent observer, as she awkwardly fumbled with a fork at an expensive dinner, or as she gazed out a window, lost in a world far away from the one they inhabited. He seemed to notice the small things, the things that made her Jina, not Minji. He saw how she would subtly excuse herself to the restroom just to make a quick whispered phone call to Junho, a friend from college, as she told him. This seemingly innocent detail, the fact that she had a life and connections outside of their rigid social circle, piqued his interest. He began asking her questions, not about business mergers or stock portfolios, but about her favorite books, her dreams, and her opinions on the art hanging in a gallery they were forced to visit. Jina, surprised by his curiosity and the genuine look in his eyes, found herself answering. She spoke of her passion for painting, her longing for a studio with large windows and endless light, her love for the raw beauty of unfiltered emotions captured on canvas. And as she spoke, she saw a flicker of something in his eyes, a spark of understanding that she never would have expected from Minji's boyfriend. It was during a quiet moment at a late-night social event that the biggest revelation came. Han-seo led her away from the loud chatter to a private study. He gestured to a large painting hanging on the wall, a powerful abstract piece that Jina found breathtaking. "My secret," he murmured, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. He confessed that he was the artist, that he had a hidden studio, a sanctuary away from the pressures of his family and their business. He saw art not as a hobby, but as an escape, a way to express a part of himself that the world never got to see. He then took her to this secret place, a dusty room filled with canvases both half-finished and complete. It was a chaotic, beautiful mess, a true artist's haven. This wasn't the cold, calculating man she had met on the first day. This was a man with a hidden passion, a quiet vulnerability he kept under lock and key. The initial hatred Jina felt for him began to fade, replaced by a complex mix of curiosity and fascination. She was caught in a difficult position, caught between her disdain for the man she first met and her growing intrigue for the man she was just starting to discover. She was now forced to see him not as a one-dimensional villain, but as a multifaceted person with his own secrets, his own struggles, and his own hidden depths. And this new understanding was changing everything. The night air was cool on Jina's face as she stood on Han-seo's private balcony, a stark contrast to the stifling atmosphere of the gala below. She was trying to collect herself, to quiet the storm of emotions that had been building inside her. That's when he came to her, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "You're not her," he said, his voice a low, unexpected rumble. The words hung in the air, a final, damning verdict. Jina's heart leaped into her throat. Her carefully constructed charade, the performance she had put her heart and soul into, was crumbling before her eyes. Panic set in, and she braced herself for the inevitable fury, the humiliation, the exposure. But it never came. Instead, a subtle, almost sad smile touched the corner of his lips. "I've known since the first day," he continued. "Minji would never chew her lip when she's nervous. Her eyes don't light up the way yours do when you talk about art. She's not real, and you are." His confession left Jina utterly speechless, vulnerable and exposed. She expected him to use this knowledge against her, but he didn't. Instead, he started to talk. He confided in her, revealing a truth that was just as shocking as her own secret. His relationship with Minji, the one celebrated in glossy magazines and high society circles, was nothing more than a carefully orchestrated business arrangement. It was a pretense, a facade designed to please their families and secure a massive corporate merger. "I hate it as much as you do," he admitted, his voice now filled with a raw honesty that Jina had never imagined possible. In that moment, surrounded by the quiet hum of the city, the wall of pretense between them didn't just crack, it completely disintegrated. They were two people caught in the same gilded cage, forced to play roles they never wanted. As they shared their secrets, their conversations took on a new depth. They spoke not as Minji and Han-seo, the perfect soulless couple, but as Jina and Han-seo, two artists trapped in a world that didn't understand them. They shared dreams of freedom, of living lives dictated by passion, not by business mergers. They spoke about the stars above, about the stories they told, a shared moment of connection in a world that was constantly pulling them apart. One evening, as they were looking at the city lights from the balcony, a moment of profound silence settled between them. In the quiet, their hands brushed. It was a fleeting, accidental touch, but it sent a powerful jolt of electricity through Jina. Her breath caught in her throat, her mind racing with a mix of shock and undeniable pleasure. This wasn't just curiosity or fascination anymore. This was a physical and emotional pull, an undeniable force that she was trying desperately to ignore. The initial hatred she felt for him was completely gone, replaced by a deep, electrifying attraction that terrified her. She was falling hard for a man who, just a few days ago, she thought she despised. But a painful truth gnawed at her. She was still in love with her own boyfriend, Jun-ho, the kind, gentle musician who was waiting for her to return. This was a brutal conflict of desires, a suffocating feeling of guilt and longing. She was a twin pretending to be her sister, a girlfriend falling for her twin's fake boyfriend. And in the midst of all this chaos, she was losing herself. The perfect, simple life she had once known was now a distant memory, replaced by a thrilling and terrifying uncertainty. She was trapped in the middle of a love story that wasn't hers, a love story that was, impossibly, becoming her own. The week was drawing to a close. The time Jina had borrowed, the life she had inhabited, was about to vanish. And with every passing hour, her heart became a more tangled, painful mess. She had a new, undeniable connection with Han-seo, a feeling so profound it had shaken her to her core. But in a quiet, guilt-filled corner of her heart, she still held a deep, lingering love for Jun-ho. She was an imposter, living a lie, and the weight of it all was becoming unbearable. The final night of the switch was a blur of anxiety and dread. Just as she was about to call Jun-ho to tell him she'd be home soon, her phone rang. It was him. His voice, usually so gentle and melodic, was frantic, his words barely coherent. "My studio, it's all gone," he choked out. "Everything. The instruments, the soundboard, everything." Gina's blood ran cold. The man she loved, her kind and struggling musician, had just lost not only his equipment, but his hope, his dreams, his entire world. A wave of crushing guilt washed over her. While she had been wrapped up in this elaborate fake life, exploring new and complicated feelings, her real love was suffering. She felt the painful sting of her betrayal, the stark contrast between her privileged, carefree week and his sudden, devastating loss. Later that night, Jina found herself sitting with Han-seo.
the weight of Junho's news pressing down on her. Hesitantly, she told him everything. She expected a cold, indifferent reaction. She braced herself for a mocking remark, for him to dismiss her pain and Junho's struggles. That's what the old Han-seo would have done. But the man before her was different. He listened, his expression grave and empathetic. When she was done speaking, he didn't mock or belittle Junho. He didn't belittle her pain. Instead, he simply reached for his phone and began making calls. He spoke in quiet, firm tones, using his connections to track down the stolen equipment. He wasn't doing it to impress her. He was doing it because he genuinely cared. He saw her distress, her helplessness, and he wanted to fix it. He offered to use his own funds to help Junho rebuild, to get a new studio. His kindness was not a gesture, but a profound and selfless act. In that moment, Jina saw him for who he truly was. This wasn't the arrogant chaebol heir. This was a man with a deep capacity for kindness, for generosity, for compassion. He wasn't just offering to help her. He was offering to help the very person she was cheating on. The person who, until now, had been the sole owner of her heart. This was no longer just a physical or emotional attraction. This was something deeper, something more powerful. It was the moment she realized her feelings for him were real and profound. He saw her pain, and instead of judging her for it, he wanted to ease it. In that one selfless act, Han-seo showed Jina what true love could look like. A love that was not possessive or selfish, but one that was built on empathy, understanding, and the genuine desire to see another person find happiness. This was the moment she knew with an agonizing certainty that her feelings for him were not a fleeting fancy, but a true and lasting connection. The love she thought she had for Junho was comfortable, but the love she was beginning to feel for Han-seo was real and transformative.
The week was over. Jina and Minji switched back, each returning to their own lives. But for Jina, nothing was the same. The quiet, comfortable world she had once known was gone, replaced by a storm of conflicting emotions. The brief time she spent with Han-seo had fundamentally changed her, revealing a part of her she didn't know existed. The first person she had to face was Junho. It was a difficult, heartbreaking conversation. With a heavy heart, she told him everything. About the twin switch, about the lie, and about the unexpected, undeniable feelings that had grown for Han-seo. Junho, ever the kind and gentle soul, was devastated. Yet he listened with an understanding that was painful in its own right. Their relationship, built on a foundation of comfort and shared dreams, had been a beautiful one. But now it was a love story that had simply run its course. They both knew, in that moment, that it was time to say goodbye. It was a somber, sorrowful end, but one filled with respect and a quiet understanding. Meanwhile, back in the world of chaebols and corporate deals, Minji and Han-seo were free. With the truth out in the open, the pretense of their relationship was no longer necessary. The business merger was called off, and both of them finally broke free from the gilded cage their families had built for them. But Han-seo didn't forget Jina. He couldn't. The real Jina, the artist, the woman who spoke her mind and loved the stars, had unknowingly opened a door in his heart he thought was permanently closed. He knew where to find her. He went to her art studio, a small, vibrant space filled with the scent of paint and creativity. Jina was there, lost in her work, a brush in her hand. When she saw him, her heart skipped a beat. She was expecting anything but this. He walked to the center of the room, surrounded by her canvases, a world he now understood so well. In a moment of pure, raw vulnerability, he told her the truth. He loved her. The man she had once despised, the man whose cruelty had fueled her initial hatred, was now standing before her, his heart in his hands. He spoke of the subtle differences he had noticed from the beginning. The way her eyes held a fire Minji's never did.
the genuine kindness she possessed. He spoke of the secret studio, of the dreams they had shared, of the compassion he felt when she spoke of Junho's loss. Their love was born from a lie, from a desperate act of deception, but it was real. It was rooted in a truth that had been discovered in the most unexpected of circumstances. Jina, standing in her studio, surrounded by the work that defined her, finally felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had been torn between two worlds, two men, and two lives. But now she had found her own. She had found a love that wasn't born from convenience or comfort, but one that was forged in fire. A love that was a testament to her strength. A love that grew from hatred to curiosity to deep understanding and ultimately to a profound and abiding affection. They had found their way to each other not through a simple twist of fate, but through a journey of self-discovery. A journey where a fake boyfriend turned out to be the real love of her life, and a hidden artist found his muse in the most unlikely of places.